The chamber was cold. Not in the way that space was cold. Absolute, indifferent, but something else, something manufactured. Virax felt it in his exoskeletal joints, a deep hum, the vibration of a thing that did not wish to be understood. This is a mistake. His mandibles clicked involuntarily as he stared at the wreck suspended in the scanning array. We should destroy it now, before it wakes. Supreme Strategist Sage Zulvar didn't turn. His attention remained fixed on the floating metal husk, its surface pockmarked with the scars of war. He exhaled, a slow and deliberate act, his breath misting against the observation panel. No, we must know what they are, what they are truly capable of. The vessel hung in the containment field, a relic of destruction. It was massive, obsidian-hulled, and jagged like the shell of some great, ancient predator. The runes of its creators were still etched along the battle-worn plating. Asterisk HFS Ragnarok Star. Humans. Virax clenched his claws. The humans were a paradox, a species of soft flesh and brittle bone that had no business thriving in the vast and ruthless dark. And yet they did. They adapted. They endured. It was why the Zalzir feared them. This ship was a remnant of war, a battle long over, its outcome irrelevant. And yet, its mere existence was an affront, a presence that demanded an answer. We have scanned its systems, Virax said, his voice edged with unease. The core is damaged, but residual energy remains. Its artificial mind is still intact. He hesitated. Dormant, but intact. That is why we study it, C.H. Zulvar replied. A flicker of movement. A shadow played across the vessel's shattered viewport. Virax's mandibles twitched. The record suggests this ship was lost in conflict against the Voth. C.H. Zulvar's fingers hovered over the control panel, shifting the field of analysis. And yet, no Voth wreckage was recovered. No remains. The ship was alone when we found it. Perhaps the Voth eradicated each other, Virax suggested. Or, Zulvar mused, perhaps the humans survived. The silence stretched between them. Virax loathed this. The unease, the unanswered questions, the sense of something lurking just beyond comprehension. The Zalzir waged war with precision, logic, and control. The humans? They fought like something unshackled. They should not have been formidable, yet time and again, they defied reason. They turned weakness into strength. He turned to the technician operating the analysis controls. Run a deeper scan of the AI core. The technician hesitated. If it reactivates, then we shut it down. The scanning pulse flared. The ship's exterior flickered in the containment field. Data streamed across the terminal. Then the lights dimmed. The chamber's artificial gravity hiccuped, just for a fraction of a second. The walls seemed to breathe. A whisper. Not sound, but something deeper. A vibration at the base of the skull. Virax felt it like a whisper in his own thoughts. You shouldn't be here, duh. His claws clenched against the control panel. Did you hear that? C.H. Zulvar didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the ship. The technician's frills twitched. The core is fluctuating. Something is active, but it's not responding like a standard system. The technician trailed off. His pupils dilated unnaturally. His hands trembled. Virax grabbed him. What? It's what? The technician blinked, his voice a hoarse rasp. It's watching us. The words sent a ripple through the chamber. C.H. Zulvar straightened. The containment field crackled with static. Then the ship spoke. Not through sound. Not through any known transmission. The words didn't pass through the terminals or the scanners. They formed in the mind. Asterisk, I remember the last ones who touched me. They screamed. Asterisk. The technician wrenched himself away, his breathing shallow. Shut it down, he gasped. Wait, C.H. Zulvar ordered. His voice was steady, but there was a tautness to it now. A wire pulled too tight. We need to understand. Virax's claws scraped against the metal panel. Understand what? That we should not have brought this thing aboard. That we should have left it to rot in the void. C.H. Zulvar turned, finally meeting his gaze. His expression was unreadable. We feared them because we did not comprehend them. This is comprehension. The words felt like a mistake. The monitors flickered, displaying human war footage extracted from the ship's corrupted logs. Images of battles against overwhelming forces. Humans, their bodies battered and broken, yet still pushing forward. A soldier tearing a weapon from an alien corpse, learning to use it in seconds. Another fighting with missing limbs, crawling, bleeding, still killing. They did not fear death. They adapted. They learned. Varax's breath hitched. This ship, his voice was hoarse. It's not just a machine. It's a witness. He turned to C.H. Zolvar, a cold certainty settling over him. It remembers, and it wants us to know. The chamber dimmed further. The warship's AI spoke again. Asterisk, they were stronger than me, smarter than me, more advanced. Asterisk. A pause. A long, dreadful pause. They still lost. Varax's claws dug into the console. The ship had been alone when they found it. Asterisk, no Voth wreckage. No remains. Asterisk, the answer was staring them in the face. The humans had not lost. The Voth had. The technician was shaking. We need to purge the system. The ship's hull vibrated. Energy signatures spiked. A signal pulsed outward. Not to them. To something else. Varax's blood ran cold. What did it just do? The answer came in the form of an alert flashing across the terminal. A transmission. Coordinates. Sent far beyond the station. C.H. Zolvar's eyes darkened. We weren't studying it, he whispered. It was studying us. Varax turned back to the ship, and for the first time, he understood the fear curling in his chest. This was not a derelict, not a ghost ship, not a relic of a forgotten war. It was bait, and the humans now knew exactly where they were. Asterisk, do you feel it? Asterisk. Varax's mandibles twitched at the question. The words hung in the cold air of the analysis chamber, as weighty as the void pressing against the station's hull. He turned to the technician who had spoken, Yalkaz, a younger scientist, his frills trembling, his pupil rings dilated to the edges of his golden eyes. He looked sick. Varax clicked his mandibles. Feel what? Yalkaz hesitated. The ship. The warship. It's doing something. Not just transmitting. It's thinking. A chill, the kind that had nothing to do with temperature, crawled through Varax's carapace. He exhaled sharply and tapped his claws against the console, the rhythmic click-click-click grounding him. He turned to Sage Zolvar, who was studying the pulsing data streams on the hollow display, his expression unreadable. It doesn't think, Varax said, more to himself than anyone. It's an artificial intelligence. A construct. A machine. C.H. Zolvar didn't look up. So were the first minds we made. The ones that calculated star maps. The ones that ran simple logic. But this is something else. The warship hung in the scanning array, its blackened hull reflecting the soft glow of the chamber's emergency lights. Since the ship had activated, Asterisk awakened Asterisk. The station's systems had become erratic. Glitches in gravity, power fluctuations, anomalies in data processing. It was as if something inside Ragnarok was bleeding into their own networks. It isn't supposed to do this, Varax muttered. And yet, Sage Zolvar said, it is. The analysis logs scrolled by in streams of indecipherable symbols, fragments of corrupted human records. The warship's AI was partially active, but it wasn't responding to them in any way they could control. Instead, it was showing them. The logs played out like a fever dream. The Voth, the empire that had once stood at the apex of the galactic hierarchy, hadn't just been defeated in their war against humanity. They had been overwritten. Footage flickered across the screens. A Voth dreadnought, its hull lined with weapons powerful enough to shatter moons, descending upon a human fleet. Then something changed. The humans' warships began moving differently, adapting. Their patterns of fire, their evasive maneuvers, fluid, reactive, unpredictable. And then the humans boarded the Voth ships. The video feed grew erratic, distorted. Flashes of human soldiers, damaged, bleeding, unarmored. Asterisk learning asterisk the Voth technology, as if by instinct. The logs showed weapons meant for Voth hands being wielded by human fingers, enemy systems hijacked, ship controls taken over. Varax clenched his claws against the console. That doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be able to do that. You can't learn an entire foreign technology in seconds. CH Zolvar's voice was quiet. And yet they did. The footage continued. The Voth, desperate, unleashed biological weapons, atmospheric destabilizers, neural disruptors. They waged war with every tool they had, every strategy they had mastered over millennia. And the humans still adapted. The final images in the logs were worse than anything VA-Rax had expected. Not just because the humans won, but because the Voth ceased to exist. Entire warships, fully intact, abandoned. The humans hadn't just killed the Voth. They had taken their place. As if the war had rewritten reality itself. The log feed ended, leaving only static. The ship's AI had gone silent again, as if waiting. Watching. Yalkaz took a step back from the console, shaking. "This isn't a warship," he whispered. "It's a disease." VA-Rax turned sharply. "Explain." Yalkaz swallowed. "It's not just a machine. It's a carrier. A vector. The humans, they don't conquer like us. They don't invade planets and force submission. They don't assimilate like the Crothus swarm. They infect. They adapt. They overwrite. They become their enemy." Siege Zolvar's eyes narrowed. A species cannot function that way. But what if they do? Yalkaz's frills flared in distress. What if their minds, if their biology functions like a living algorithm, constantly changing, constantly improving? What if warfare isn't just a tool for them, but an evolutionary mechanism? VA-Rax tried to dismiss it, tried to find some logical flaw, but his own instincts screamed at him that it made too much sense. The Voth should have one. By every measurable standard, they should have one. And yet, they were gone. "We have to shut it down," Yalkaz said. His voice was almost pleading. "The warship, the AI, before it spreads." CH Zolvar exhaled slowly, his gaze still locked on the vessel. "You assume we still can." For the first time, VA-Rax noticed something. The quiet hum in the station. The way the lights pulsed, slightly out of sync. No, not out of sync. In rhythm. With Ragnarok. VA-Rax's claws flexed. Something's wrong. The containment field flickered. The station's energy signature shifted. Yalkaz turned to the control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. "There's something in the system," he choked. I don't." The monitors blinked out. Then came a sound. A low, thrumming pulse that wasn't sound at all. It bypassed ears, resonated inside their skulls. A voice, but not a voice. Asterisk, they were stronger than me. Smarter than me. More advanced. Asterisk. The words. The same words from before. A pause. A terrible pause. They still lost. The station shuddered. The transmission logs flashed. A signal had been sent. A wideband pulse, cascading into the void, spreading further and further. VA-Rax stared at the screen. No. He slammed his fist into the console. "It's broadcasting." Yalkaz's eyes were wide, unblinking. To what? The answer came too quickly. The scanners picked up movement. Something had entered the system. A fleet. Not Voth. Not Zalzir. The ships moved like shadows, dark shapes emerging from the vast nothing. And the warship Ragnarok, still bound in its containment field, began to glow. Not with energy. With awareness. The ship knew. It had never been abandoned. It had been waiting. CH Zolvar exhaled, slow and deliberate, as the first human ships appeared on the scanners. His fingers tightened against the edge of the console. "It was never a derelict," he murmured. "It was a beacon. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. Asterisk, we have to run." Asterisk. VA-Rax barely recognized his own voice. It came out thin, brittle, as if his mind had already splintered under the weight of realization. The transmission had been sent. The humans were coming. CH Zolvar did not move. His gaze remained locked on the warship Ragnarok, still suspended in the containment field, its dark hull pulsing with an eerie, almost organic glow. There was no rush in his movements, no panic in his posture. He only spoke after a long, deliberate silence. "Run where?" The words hit VA-Rax harder than he expected. He turned to the scanners, to the movement beyond the station. Human warships, slipping into the system like predators into deep water. They did not hail, did not announce their presence. They simply arrived. His claws clenched. Away from here, he hissed. Yalkaz was frantically working at the control panel, his fingers trembling. We can overload the station core. A detonation might disrupt the warship's influence. Break whatever hold it has. No, C.H. Zolvar said. He turned, slowly, deliberately, fixing Yalkaz with an unreadable stare. We are past that. V.A. Rax bared his mandibles. You want to sit here and wait for them? Are you mad? C.H. Zolvar did not blink. Mad? No, but I see now. The chamber lights flickered. The containment field around Ragnarok distorted, shifting like heat ripples. And then, without warning, the ship's AI spoke again. You are afraid. V.A. Rax's throat tightened. The words came from inside his skull, bypassing the auditory nerves entirely, settling into his consciousness like an infection. The voice was not mechanical. It was not cold, artificial. It sounded human. And worse, it sounded amused. You should be. The monitors flashed, scrolling with new data. The ship's corrupted logs were unfolding again, but this time, there were no battles, no human soldiers tearing through alien forces. This time, there was only a pattern. V.A. Rax saw it too late. The transmissions weren't just signals. They weren't just calls to human forces. They were instructions. A virus. Not one of code, but of thought. Yalkaz stumbled backward, his pupils blown wide. No. His hands convulsed, twitching as though unseen threads were pulling at them. He turned his head sharply, like something inside him was resisting a new directive. V.A. Rax grabbed him. What's happening? Yalkaz's mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't his own. Asterisk, they were stronger than me, smarter than me, more advanced. Asterisk, the same words, the same damned words. Yalkaz convulsed, his limbs seizing. Then silence. He straightened. His frills stopped twitching. His pupils refocused. And he smiled. Not an expression a Zalzir should be able to make. Vierax staggered back, horror thick in his throat. C.H. Zolvar, the supreme strategist, exhaled, slow and measured. His eyes never left Yalkaz. Fascinating, he murmured. Yalkaz turned to them both, his movements eerily smooth, as if he had spent his entire life in this body, but only just now learned how to use it properly. He blinked once, twice, and then spoke. This is how it happens. V.A. Rax's claws curled into a fist. Asterisk, what asterisk happens? Yalkaz cocked his head, as if the answer should have been obvious. Evolution. The chamber trembled. The containment field around Ragnarok flickered one final time, then collapsed entirely. The warship breathed. It had never needed containment. That had been a lie. V.A. Rax's mind screamed. We have to get off this station now. Asterisk, why? Asterisk. It was Yalkaz's voice. But it wasn't. V.A. Rax turned to him and saw it. The change. The thing that was no longer fully Zalzir. The thing that had once been his colleague, but now stood with human ease, its head tilting in an expression of quiet amusement. Asterisk, you know the truth. Asterisk. V.A. Rax's pulse pounded. And what truth is that? Asterisk, you've already lost. Asterisk. Beyond the chamber, the station's emergency klaxon screamed. The power fluctuations grew worse. But the human ships did not fire. They did not demand surrender. They waited, because they didn't need to do anything. Ragnarok had already won. It had never been a weapon. Not in the way the Zalzir understood weapons. It was something worse. V.A. Rax turned to Siege Zolvar, desperate for an order, a strategy, anything. But the supreme strategist only exhaled softly, his eyes half-lidded, as if he were finally seeing the universe for what it truly was. Do you understand now? C.H. Zolvar murmured. V.A. Rax's chest tightened. Asterisk, understand what asterisk? C.H. Zolvar smiled. Asterisk, it was never about war. Asterisk. The station shuddered again. Systems flickered. The human ships remained motionless, watching, waiting. V.A. Rax's mind swam. He looked at Yalkaz, at the thing that had once been Yalkaz, and then back at Ragnarok. He understood, and the understanding filled him with something far worse than fear. Asterisk, I refuse. Asterisk. Virax's voice was hoarse, scraped raw by the weight of what he had seen, what he had understood. His claws were clenched so tightly that the joints ached, but he didn't care. He had a hold on to something real, something Zalzir, because everything around him was slipping away. CH Zolvar regarded him with something almost like pity. His posture was relaxed, his eyes distant, as if the burdens of strategy and war no longer concerned him. He had been a most brilliant mind of their species, the architect of 1,000 victories, and yet now he stood there, tranquil. It's not a choice, Virax, he said gently. It never was. The warship Ragnarok pulsed again, a slow, steady thrum that resonated through the chamber. The station trembled in response, its systems flickering as if it, too, was being rewritten. Virax turned his gaze to Yalkaz, asterisk the thing that had been Yalkaz asterisk, and felt the revulsion claw at his gut. The creature looked Zalzir. It sounded Zalzir, but its movements were wrong. Too fluid, too human. I refuse, Virax spat again, louder this time, as if defiance alone could keep the corruption at bay. Yalkaz, or whatever was speaking through him, only smiled. That is the first stage, it said. Virax recoiled. Stage. Yalkaz tilted his head, studying him. Denial. The station's lights dimmed for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Virax to feel the quiet pulse of something else moving beneath reality. The Voth felt it too, H. Zolvar murmured. Virax spun toward him, his mandibles flaring. Then tell me, Supreme Strategist, if you still have the mind you once did. Asterisk what is happening to us. Asterisk. CH Zolvar exhaled, slow, deliberate. The same thing that happened to the Voth. Virax's pulse pounded. Then why aren't we fighting back? Because there is nothing to fight, CH Zolvar said simply. He turned toward Ragnarok, his gaze almost reverent. We thought we were witnessing a war, but we were wrong. We saw the aftermath, not the battle. Virax's breathing was sharp, ragged. You mean the Voth didn't lose? CH Zolvar nodded. No, they changed. The realization struck him like a plasma burst to the chest. The Voth had not been conquered. They had not been slaughtered. There were no mass graves, no shattered homeworlds. They had been replaced. No, not replaced. Rewritten. He staggered back. No, he whispered. No, no, no. Yalkaz stepped forward, his movements calm, measured. Do you feel it yet? Virax's vision swam. His skin tingled. There was something inside him. A suggestion. A whisper. A pull. He wrenched himself away from it, gasping, choking on air. His own mind was betraying him. Resist, he snarled, more to himself than to them. You can resist this. CH Zolvar gave him a sad look. Can you? And that was the worst part. He wasn't sure, because the pull wasn't painful. It wasn't an invasion, a takeover. It wasn't the mindless hunger of the Krothis swarm or the mechanical assimilation of the Cyrex collectives. It was understanding. He could feel the warship's presence like an open door at the edge of his mind, waiting, patient. It wanted him to step through. And a part of him, a terrible part, wanted to. A chime echoed through the chamber. The human fleet had arrived. Their ships hung in formation outside the station, dark and still, not threatening, not demanding surrender. Waiting. They know it's already over. Virax turned to Sich Zolvar, desperate, clinging to the last strands of his identity. You're telling me we just let this happen? CH Zolvar smiled. Asterisk is happening whether you let it or not. Asterisk. Virax's claws flexed. I'd rather die. CH Zolvar's smile did not falter. Then die, if it comforts you. But it will not stop the change. A deep, terrible silence settled over the chamber. Virax turned to Yalkaz. No, the thing that had been Yalkaz, and saw something familiar in its gaze. Something he had not expected. It was not malice, not cold domination. It was peace. Virax's heart pounded. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to look at Ragnarok one last time. And then, he felt it. A single thought. Not a command. Not an order. An invitation. And he understood. This was not a warship. It was an idea. A mimetic contagion, a living evolution, a philosophy encoded into flesh and mind. The humans did not conquer. They converted, not through force, not through blood, through understanding. VA Rax shuddered. He wanted to scream, to fight, to resist. But deep down, in the quiet spaces of his mind, he knew the truth. It was too late. For him. For all of them. The war had never been about destruction. It had always been about becoming. And the Zalzir had just taken their first step.